Students, this is the video for the second online lab. That second part of the data analysis project is going to be based on the information that you collected from the first online lab. Remember that we did a survey and it recorded all of the data from a survey from all of the different students in statistics. And once we took all of this data from folks in the class, we were able to make smaller sheets in the middle here for the different weeks. We're going to be focusing on some of those different smaller sets of data, and today is no different. Today we're going to be focusing on the week 2 data. So let's take a look at the week 2 sheet. On that week 2 sheet, remember you were supposed to put the respondents, you were supposed to put the intended majors in college, and then you were also supposed to put in a category. You referred to an external website to try to figure out what category that they belong to. If you notice, all of these different categories, health professions, business management, social sciences, all these different categories have matches, right? There's 2 psychologies here, there's another psychology here, but this is sort of like raw data in that it's hard to tell which one is the highest, which one is the lowest, and which ones are sort of in between. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this data and turn it into a diagram. The first diagram I'm going to show you, even though I sort of trashed it in class, is the pie chart. Lucky for us, a pie chart couldn't be simpler to make. What we're going to do is we're going to highlight all of the different values here, all the different categories of health professions. Notice I didn't highlight any of the cells that contain the intended major because some of these won't really match up, right? This person said zoology or law, this person said medical courses or biology. That's not really matching up with anything, but zoology or law, or the zoology part matches up with microbiology. The medical courses matches up with biological and biomedical. So we took these categories, highlighted all of them, not including the header row, and we're going to go to Insert. Under Insert Chart, you'll see that there are a bunch of different options here, but it automatically detects that we're looking at qualitative data, and it generates for us a pie chart. And look how much easier this pie chart is to view than just looking at the raw data here. I'm able to see that business management is 28.6%. I'm able to see that biological and biomedical is going to be 10.7%. It gives us all this information in a very easy to see, easy to understand way. And it color codes it nicely. This is something that you can use to put into a report or to put into a research paper or something like that. And it can help you make your point. You could say something like, I think that Queens Metropolitan High School should focus on business management in their courses, as over a quarter, 28.6% of students indicated that they were interested in this category of majors in their college career. Now notice that it defaulted to writing down the word or the category and then the percentage below it. But the header is count of category, and we want to change that because that seems a little yucky. So we're going to change that to, let's call them majors, college majors for QMHS students. This way, the person that's looking at the diagram, remember, the intended purpose of the diagram is to communicate what you want to say. The person that's looking at this diagram will instantly see, oh, this pie chart is for college majors for Queens Metropolitan High School students. The nice thing about Google Sheets is that I'm able to take this and move it anywhere I want. So for example, if I want to make another diagram, which I do, I'm going to move it to the top right, and then I'll be able to have a lot of space here for other types of diagrams. If you'll remember, when we highlighted all of these data and clicked Insert Chart, it defaulted to a pie chart because Google Sheets is kind of smart. It kind of figures out what data that you're feeding it. However, we have options. In order to view those options, let's go to Insert again and go to Chart again. Now it gives us a pie chart as a default, a copy of the pie chart from before. But over here under the Setup tab, we can click down and figure out all the different charts that we could use. We could use charts like sideways bar charts or vertical bar charts, like a column chart. This is more like a bar graph that you're familiar with, right? There are other types of graphs here too. You can use line charts, which in this case doesn't really make sense because this isn't showing changes over time. Or you could do multiple column charts like side-by-side columns or stacked columns, which doesn't make any sense because we don't have data within. Google Sheets has said to us, listen, pal, you probably want one of these 3 charts, so let's choose this one. This is a bar chart. Now I'm going to, again, change the label. Remember the label from before was counts of category, but we're calling this college majors for QMHS students. Cool. So now I'm going to take this chart and drag it over here. Now I've made two different charts for my data. I've made a pie chart for those people who like pie charts, and I made a bar chart for those people who like bar charts. This is nice because I'm able to compare across different categories. For example, I know that psychology, biological sciences, homeland security, and education all have about the same percentages or groups of students, or frequencies of students, I should say, because this is really a frequency bar chart, right? Because on the y-axis here is frequency. One other thing that you should notice is that this bar chart has one axis that is labeled, but it's labeled incorrectly. So let's go in and try to relabel this. So I'm going to click on the chart, and actually I'm going to double click on it to bring up the chart editor, and I'll slide the chart over here so we can see what's going on as we edit it. So now there are a lot of different sections of this chart, and as you notice, as I hover my mouse over them, you should see them pop up. You should see a little box go around them. What I want to do is change this count of category over here. Count of category is one of the labels on my chart. So what I want to do is I want to go into where it says chart and axis titles. So I'm going to click on chart and axis titles, and notice that the horizontal axis title is count of category. We don't want that. We're going to put category of college major, because all of the data on the x-axis is going to be the categories of college majors. And you'll notice that it instantly updates on the bar graph category of college major. Great, perfect. Since we want to change this count of category here, this label on the horizontal axis, what we're going to do is go to chart and axis titles, and notice it's talking about the horizontal axis title here. The title text right now says count of category, but I want to change that, so I'm going to click and delete it. And what I want is for the horizontal axis to be labeled with categories of majors. So I'll write categories of majors. Majors is spelled M-A-J-O-R-S. Perfect. And now you can see it instantly updated it. Categories of majors is right here. Perfect. Once I am done with labeling the horizontal axis, maybe I want to label the vertical axis. These numbers are my frequencies, so what I want is for them to say frequencies. So I'm going to go back to chart and axis titles, go to the vertical axis title, and notice that there's no vertical axis title currently because it's not labeled here. I want to label it as frequency, so I'll label this as frequency. And notice that it pops right up there. It's very important for your diagrams to have labels on their axes. Bar charts, histograms all have to have labels on their axes. Okay, so now we have a bar chart and a pie chart for these data. I'm satisfied with that. Let's move on to another set of data, maybe a quantitative set of data. That way we can make more sophisticated charts. Let's go back to the main page, which is all of the data, and look for a category that's got some nice quantitative data that's spread out a little bit so that I can put it into a histogram. Looks like the category that I'm going to be looking for is how many people did you text yesterday. We have a lot of numbers here. We have numbers starting from 0. I think the highest number here is probably about 17 or 18. An easy way to figure out what the highest and lowest number is by using the sort feature. So let's try that out now. Before I go messing up this sheet, I'm going to create a new sheet. So I'm going to press the plus button, and notice that the sheet kind of goes wherever it wants. Let's call this one histogram. And let's slide it all the way to the end because we're not really doing it in week order now. In the histogram sheet, what I want is for there to be the respondents, and I also want there to be how many people you texted yesterday. So I clicked up here on the column header for, or the column topper for B, and then I'm going to press and hold Control and then select G as well. Notice I only selected B and G. I didn't select everything between B and G. Another way you can do this is select them one at a time. So I'm going to press Control C or copy, and then go back into the histogram sheet, Control V to paste. And it's given me only the respondents and how many people they texted yesterday. Okay, clean it up a little bit and make them all centered. Perfect. Okay, so let's try to sort this data. I'm going to click on this top left gray box here. So I'm selecting all of the data here. I'm going to I'm going to go to data and then going to go to sort range. I'm going to sort it by a specific range or a specific category. I'm going to sort it by column B because I want to sort it by how many people you texted yesterday. The question asks, does the data have header row? And yes, it does. The header row is the top row there where it says respondents and how many people you texted yesterday. And I want to sort by not respondents, but how many people did you text yesterday? I'm going to go from A to Z, which means I'm going to go from the smallest number to the highest number. I know that these are letters, but bear with me. That's how it's organized here. So once I sort it, I see that the respondents are all out of order. That's okay. It doesn't matter what order they're in. But I see that the lowest number was 0 and the highest number was 17. So I have a good spread. I have some that are very low texters and I have some that are high texters. As I said, Google Sheets is pretty smart. So what I'm going to do is going to try to maybe just ask Google Sheets, can you make this into a histogram for me? Of course, afterwards, I am going to have to customize it a little bit, but it gets me most of the way there. I'm going to highlight my data, and I'm going to go to Insert and then Chart. And it's going to try to figure out what I want. It's giving me what looks to be a column chart, but what I want this to be is a histogram. So I'm going to go into Chart Type, and we're going to scroll down to where it says histogram. It's going to be a pretty mighty scroll, but you'll find it. It says histogram. And now you'll see that this histogram has grouped all of my data into groups. These are all of the people that text message between 0 and 3.5 times. These are all the people that text message between 3.5 times and 7 times, and so on. So it's automatically grouped my data into 5 different classes, 5 different groups, 5 different buckets. But I don't want to make 5 different buckets, and there's a couple of reasons why. One of the reasons is we usually want to do between, somewhere between 7 and like 15 classes or categories. So this is too few categories. Another problem is that the cut point here is 3.5. So it's kind of a weird time to, it's a weird point to stop, right? I don't know anyone who can text 3.5 times, right? It doesn't make much sense on discrete quantitative data. So I'm going to try to adjust these buckets a little bit so that it fits my data better. That information is going to lie on the Customize tab. We're going to go to the special part that says histogram because histograms have some specific stuff going on. If I show item dividers, that's just going to show me the individual values. So, for example, all the folks that texted between 0 and 3.5 times, there's 8 of them. If I go show item dividers, I'm going to see 8 different people in here. That just represents the number of people. I don't really want that. That's not part of my histogram. But this does say bucket size auto. So what I want to do is take this bucket size and turn it from auto into something else. Now there's some defaults here. I could go 1, 2, 5. What I think I want to do is I want to have a bucket size of 2 because all of the people that texted between 0 and 1 times can be in one group. All the folks that texted between 2 and 3 times can be in one group. 4 and 5 times can be in one group. So I'll make the bucket size 2. And as you can see, it automatically regenerated my histogram to represent what I wanted. You can also see that the histogram is working as planned because remember with the histogram, the buckets or the classes can't overlap and they have to be they can't be going into each other. So for example, from 0 to 2, the value is 2. That means every person that texted 0 or 1 times is in that group. For 0 and 1, there's only 2 people that did that. As soon as you hit 2, that gets into the next category. So there's no confusion as to where the 2 text messages people are supposed to go. The 2 text message people are supposed to go in this second class, the second bucket, right? So now we can see that it's got a pretty nice curve. And if you remember back to the notes that we took the other day, this shape is a skewed right curve. I'll let you figure out by looking at your notes why it's skewed right and not skewed left. One thing that they'll definitely get you on the instructor exams or on the department final is your axes have to be labeled correctly. In this case, the title is how many people did you text yesterday? That's fine. I think I'll remove the 5, the number 5, by double clicking here. And as you double click, you can see you can edit it very easily. How many people did you text yesterday? It seems like a pretty good title to me. But again, I want this axis to say not how many people did you text yesterday, but this is the number of people in each class. In other words, this is the frequency. So I could double click in here, or I could go to the part that it asks for Where is it here? Is it in histogram? No. Oh, I remember. It's in chart and axis titles. We'll go to the vertical axis title, and I don't want it to say how many people did you text yesterday. I want it to say frequency. Okay? Perfect. And now on the horizontal axis, remember this is going from 0 to 2 to 4 to 6 to 8. These numbers are really numbers of text messages, right? 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8, etc. So let's go to the horizontal axis title. Notice that there is no horizontal axis title. So what I want to do is change it to the number of texts. Be careful, it's not how many people were in each group, it's just number of texts. For example, from 8 to 10, this is between 8 and 10 texts, right? There's one other thing that's a little strange, and that is the fact that these numbers are decimals. You know that these values are quantitative data, but they're also discrete data. Discrete meaning you can't get between 0 and 1 texts, for example. You can't cut it in half and make it make sense. However, there's no easy way to change these, so we're just going to have to leave it like that. So there's how you make a histogram. We've made a histogram on how many people you texted yesterday, and you can identify a shape from a histogram and a couple other things that we'll be talking about later on in the course. I'm actually quite happy with this chart, but let's say you made a mistake. Let's say you put in the wrong values, or you didn't highlight all of the data here. If you want to delete a chart, it's very simple. You select the chart, you go to the three dots on the top right, and you go delete chart. If you just made one small mistake and you didn't need to delete the chart, for example, you can do undo or Control Z. I like to go to edit and undo to show students that to just undo the last thing that you did. If I do undo one more time, that undoes the modification that I made before. So I'm going to redo that by doing Control Y, and now I'm good to go. All right, so let's bring this chart over here. And now we've made our frequency table, our histogram. We've also, in the week 2 sheet, made a pie chart, and we've also made a bar chart. Okay, there's one more chart that I'm going to show you how to make. I'm actually going to go back to that histogram sheet for 1 second here. And I want to show you how to make a dot plot. So you know that a dot plot is going to sort of look the same or very similar to a histogram, except it's going to not have groups. It's going to have the individual values. So what I'm going to do is I've already arranged my values for number of people that we texted yesterday from least to greatest. Now I'm going to input one more column here, and that's the count column. So Google Sheets is very smart. It can figure out a lot of things, but for some reason it can't figure out how many times the numbers come up. So what you're going to do is you're just going to count the number of times these numbers came up. For example, well, this is the first 0, so I'm going to put 1 here. This is the first 1 here, so I'm going to put 1. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 2s. So this is the first 2, the second 2, the third 2, and the fourth 2. Keep in mind that this is just how many of the individual numbers show up. Or like this is the first of that type of number. This is the first of that type of number. So again, over here, there's 2 3s, so 1, 2. There's 3 4s, so 1, 2, 3. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4. For the 7s, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 1 8, there's 2 9s, there's 2 10s, there's an 11, a 12, a 14, and a 17. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm just counting how many times those values appear. I'm going to make this nice and tidy by putting them in the center. Okay, now I'm going to click and highlight everything from the header row down to the bottom cell. And then I'm going to go into Insert, and then I'm going to go into Chart. Now, it wants to give me a histogram again, and I get it because histograms are pretty cool. And also because this is quantitative data that looks like they can be fit into cells very easily, or I should say classes very easily. However, I'm going to ask it to do something else. Now, it doesn't have dot plot listed in here, unfortunately, but it does have something else that kind of looks like a dot plot, and that is the scatter plot. Here's your scatter plot, and after looking at it for a couple of seconds, you could probably start to see what's going on here. What's going on here is they put the count on the side here, which makes sense because that's the number of times that the numbers came up. And they put the individual values on the horizontal axis. I'm going to spread this out a little bit so maybe we can see the numbers a little bit better. And then I'm going to mess with the settings a little bit to make it look a little bit more like a dot plot. First, I'm going to go to Customize. And in Customize, I'm going to go to the horizontal axis. Now, the horizontal axis, it's supposed to say how many people we texted yesterday. So it's supposed to go from 0 to 17. I can't see every one of these values though, so I want to make sure that I can at least see most of the values here. The minimum value and the maximum value you can set by yourself. I'm going to put the minimum value at 0 because it makes sense that there should be 0 texts, but the maximum value, I'm going to put it to 20. I'm going to put it a little bit higher than the maximum value. And then I'm going to unclick allow bounds to hide data, and here's why. You can see right here that the one value of 0 is kind of hidden by the edge here, but if I unclick allow bounds to hide data, now the 0 jumps out and I can see where it is. There's 1 0, there's 1 1, there's several 2s, and so on. So that's my horizontal axis. I'm going to change my vertical axis as well. I'm going to go to the same part here, which is the minimum and the maximum. For the vertical axis, my minimum is okay to be 0. My maximum, it looks like the highest count is going to be 4. So I'm going to put it up to, let's put it up to 5. And again, I'm going to unclick allow bounds to hide data, but I don't have to worry about that because nothing's being hidden here. And now it's nice and easy to see the pattern here. In fact, if I click out of the chart editor for a moment, you can see that the two patterns that are shown by the dot plot and the histogram, if we sort of resize it a little bit so that it looks similar, you can see that that pattern, that shape, is pretty much borne out by both of them. I'm going to double click on this to customize again because there's one more thing that I want to change here. There's actually two more things. This says how many people you texted yesterday. I'm going to double click on this to change this. This is people. I'm sorry, not people, but texts. Okay. And then histogram of count, I'm going to change that to how many people did you text yesterday? Okay, this is just another way to show that data. But one other thing that's annoying me is that my horizontal axis is not showing up with each individual number. So the way that I fix that is I go from my customize menu, I'm going to go to grid lines and ticks rather. So I open up grid lines and ticks, and you can see that there are a couple of different settings in here. What I want to do is change the spacing type. The spacing type is just the spaces in between these horizontal values. I'm going to change it to step. In other words, I want a space or a step every one number. So I'm going to change this to 1, and you'll see what happens here. It reveals all of the different values, all the way from 0 up until 20. So it's an easier way to see the different values. If I change this to major step 2, then it's going to only go by 2s, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. If I change it to major step 5, it'll look exactly the same as it was before, but I want it to be 1 because 1 seems to be the thing that I want. There's one other thing that I'm going to do to make it look like a normal dot plot. I don't really want grid lines, these lines on the document, so I'm going to unclick grid lines, and now it sort of starts looking more like the dot plot. My horizontal axis grid lines are gone. Let's get rid of the vertical axis grid lines. So now it looks exactly like a dot plot. You know what? After looking at that, let's keep that major grid line back in there. Yeah, it looks a little better this way. Okay, there's my dot plot. We've done a couple of different data displays today. Here are the data displays that we've done so far. We looked at week 2, and we created a pie chart and a bar chart or a bar graph. We also created a histogram, and we also created a dot plot. These are the things that you have to replicate on your own lab for the data analysis project for week 2. All right, thank you for watching, and good luck studying.